Appreciate you joining me today. We're going to be thinking about Pilate. Our hymn today is called No Fault in Him.
Christ stood before Pilate with fettered hands and answered not a word. The throng surged round with shouts and jeers, while Pilate's heart was stirred. I find no fault in this man, he said, but still the more they cried, away with him, and on the cross the King of glory died. No fault can I find in Jesus, the man of Calvary. Away with him, and on the cross the King of glory died.
Appreciate it, Lee. Pardon me for that little snafu there. Trying to find where it picked back up. Verse 2, Can you say with Pilate, I find no fault in him who went his way, and spent his life in pointing men to realms of endless day, who healed the sick, yes, and raised the dead, who made the blind to see, and through his love for you and me died on the cruel tree. No fault can I find with Christ my Lord, but wonderful to know that he who conquered sin and death could ever love me so, as to bear the shameful and cruel cross, that I might fully be released from sin and dwell with him through all eternity. No fault can I find in Jesus, the man of Calvary. John 18, verse 28. Then they led Jesus from Caiaphas to the praetorium, and it was early morning, but they themselves did not go into the praetorium, lest they should be defiled, but that they might eat the Passover. Pilate went out to them and said, What accusation do you bring against this man? They answered and said to him, If he were not an evildoer, we would not have delivered him up to you. Then Pilate said to them, You take him and judge him according to your law. Therefore the Jews said to him, It is not lawful for us to put anyone to death, that the saying of Jesus might be fulfilled, which he spoke, signifying by what death he would die. Conversation goes on. Pilate comes into the praetorium, asks, Are you the king of the Jews? Pilate knew what the Jews were doing. He says, Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you to me. What have you done? And Jesus says, My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight. So Pilate again says, Are you a king then? He says, You rightly say I am a king. For this cause I was born, and for this cause I have come into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. And Pilate said to him, What is truth? When he had said this, he went out again to the Jews and said to them, I find no fault in him, but you have a custom that I should release someone to you at the Passover. Do you therefore want me to release to you the King of the Jews? And they all cried again, saying, Not this man, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a robber. Just thinking about Pilate, and as Pilate was governor, and you have a few different aspects of Pilate. Pilate was the governor, and he was the governor for Rome. And that's going to be the card that they eventually play. If you don't do this, you're no friend of Caesar's. And it's political manipulation. And Pilate caved to it. So here he is, he's in a place of authority, and the Lord recognizes his authority. And he says, you would have no authority at all except it was given by God. The Lord does rule in the kingdoms of men. Pilate doesn't realize his part in all that, per se, but regardless, he's the governor for Rome. But he's also the governor for the Jews. And so here he is, and he does not want a riot on his hands. You know, he says, I find no fault in him. But he's going to end up appeasing the Jews. And you can tell through the whole account, and when you look at the parallel accounts, he keeps trying to release Jesus. And he says, I find no fault in him. He even at a certain point, they beat him, they beat Jesus, put the crown on him and a purple robe, and they bring him out, and he says, Behold your king. And I think he's trying to get them, he's making such a mockery of Jesus that he's hoping it will satisfy the Jews' hatred, and that they will not, that surely they will not release someone. I believe other accounts don't just say that the fellow who they released was a robber. I think it talks about him being a notorious criminal, if not more. It's like, surely you would not release someone like that back into the public. It's like, this guy's innocent. Like, well, he makes himself a king. You know, when he says, are you a king? And that whole conversation when Jesus says, my kingdom's not of this world. If my kingdom was of this world, my disciples would fight. That's what Pilate cares about. Pilate's like, I just don't want an uprising on my hand. And the Lord's basically saying, that's not what my kingdom is like. And at that point, Pilate says, oh, okay, I find no fault in him. But he's the governor for the Jews. And so he's going to appease the Jews. He's the governor for Rome. And so you have that aspect. But then you just have he himself. And even though he knows this is wrong, the message comes from his wife, have nothing to do with this man. She talks about the dreams she's had, and she'd suffered many things. And Pilate, he washes his hands in front of the crowd. So, but ultimately, he will not govern himself per se. Even though he knows Jesus is innocent, he's willing to put an innocent man to death to satisfy the Jews. He will not govern himself. He's manipulated into this. I think Jesus kind of alludes to that when he says there in verse 36, if my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight so that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now my kingdom is not from here. It's another verse I'm thinking of. Perhaps it's here in John, but it may be elsewhere. Where he says, others bear the greater guilt. I'd have to hunt for it. That's all right. But it's one of the things that Jesus says, that those who had delivered him bear the greater guilt. And Pilate knew he was innocent, but he would not govern himself. He's governor for Rome. He's governor for the Jews. Tries to wash his hands, but Pilate himself is guilty. And so we think about Jesus, and we think about the things that Jesus suffered because of all of these things, and we think about why he suffered for us ourselves. Appreciate you. I hope you have a good day. Join us tomorrow for another portion of our daily praise.